Welcome to another episode of 9to5Mac Weekly, where this is the second time I've recorded episode 13 of this show. So, yeah. I'm your host, Miles Somerville, and let's dive in. We're going to talk about everything that happened at WWDC, or at least I'm going to try to break down some of the biggest things that happened in this year's developer conference event. So, let's dive in. If you're looking to secure and protect the users on your domain, then you might want to check out ZeroSSL, who's sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. As the first real alternative to Let's Encrypt, ZeroSSL offers completely free SSL certificates through a super simple and intuitive interface. In addition to both offering API and ACME, ZeroSSL has a really user-friendly API that allows the user to create 90-day and 1-year validity certificates through an extremely seamless process. Try ZeroSSL for free in the link in the description below. Thanks to ZeroSSL for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. Let's start with iOS 14. So firstly, that iPhone OS name change that was rumored is not a thing, and not that I really think it matters anyway, it is just a name at the end of the day. But as rumored previously, widgets are a big thing with iOS 14, and it's taken them 10 years to finally catch up to Android and add this feature, but they finally did it, and it's pretty much what we expect as far as the implementation into iOS, but like I said, I'm glad they finally did. They've also brought in some much needed UI features, like finally adding heads-up notifications for calls. They've also introduced this feature called App Clips, which essentially allows you to preview an app. For example, if you're out and about in a new city you just traveled to and you want to rent one of those electric scooters that requires an app and an account to use, you can kind of just use App Clips to use sign in through Apple to take you through the whole process and do all of this without having to download a fully fledged app onto the phone. Doing something like this can save a lot of time and a lot of space if you're tight on storage or something like that. Overall, I think they've added a bunch of moderate additions to iOS that should come together to add a really fresh new experience as far as iOS 14 is concerned. It should be coming out in the fall, and I'm pretty excited for it. Moving on to watchOS, Apple's added a few nice features to watchOS with version 7, the biggest feature being the ability for users to share their watch faces, which is pretty cool. They've added more workout features, so you can start a dance workout and the Apple Watch will track it. They've even improved Apple Maps on Apple Watch, adding more precise navigation features, and they've even added a hand washing timer. Apple Watches will automatically detect when you're washing your hands using sensors and a microphone in the watch, and I gotta say, this is probably the most 2020 feature that Apple's ever put into one of their products, but I'd say it's definitely needed for some people, and I can't wait to try it out. Something that was kind of unexpected for this event was Apple bringing a huge update for the AirPods. Apple's introducing a software update that'll allow for nearly completely seamless transitioning between devices when receiving phone calls or watching a movie. For example, if you've got your AirPods on and connected to your phone, if you pull out your iPad and start watching a movie, it'll automatically switch to the iPad, which is going to make the AirPods so much more convenient. They're also introducing a spatial audio feature for the AirPod Pros, and this is essentially Apple's attempt at adding like a 7.1 surround sound effect to the AirPod Pros, which I think is a pretty appropriate feature for the product, and I can't wait to give that a try. Now, when it comes to macOS Big Sur, that's probably an update I did not expect as far as how huge it was. They've essentially redesigned the entire macOS operating system from the icons to the Finder. They've essentially iOS 7'd macOS, which I guess I'm cool with. I know there are some people out there who are not digging it, but I personally think it looks fine. They've reorganized some things as far as where you can access your basic sound and display controls, and they've pretty much done a complete facelift on the Finder. They've also finally brought the macOS version of Messages up to speed with iOS, so it looks like we've got new search features and even extension support within iOS, so Game Pigeon? They've also added some major changes to Safari. They've given it a minor facelift with new tab management features, updated app extension support, and enhanced privacy features. And now macOS 10 is no more. macOS Big Sur is now the start of macOS 11. So yeah, big changes are coming. And speaking of change, Apple has finally announced their biggest change to the Mac since their move to Intel from PowerPCs, and that's that Apple's finally making the transition to ARM-based Mac computers. It's been rumored for years, but now it's finally happening. The idea with this new custom silicon chip is to provide the same, if not better, performance levels than the Intel-based Mac computers while providing far less power consumption. We've seen this before kind of with the iPad Pro. That thing is a beast, and now it's coming to Mac. Apple said this is going to be a 2-year transition, and the idea is for the transition to be completely seamless And to help support that process, Apple is reintroducing a concept they used long ago when transitioning from the PowerPCs to the Intel-based Macs, and that's Rosetta. So essentially, Apple is going to implement some sort of emulation platform within the ARM-based Macs that will allow these ARM-based Macs to support macOS applications that were previously designed only for Intel-based Mac computers. Apple even previewed some new versions of apps like Final Cut Pro, saying certain apps like that will be ready to launch on day one. And ARM-based Macs are also going to be able to run iOS and iPad apps, which is honestly a pretty killer feature. They confirmed the first ARM-based Mac would be coming this year, and they'll continue to release Intel-based Macs for a little while longer. I believe Tim Cook did say there are still a few Intel-based Macs that are supposed to come out this year as well. There are so many different factors that go into how much the Mac is going to change going forward as a result of this transition. And I will say that while the transition to ARM-based Macs isn't going to be completely smooth, there's going to be software issues and software constraints, I will say that Apple did handle this probably the best way that they could, and I'm super excited to see what Mac can do now that they're no longer tied down by Intel's constraints. There's so many different other questions I have as far as how this transition is going to affect Macs going forward. Like, for example, what is Boot Camp going to be like going forward, if there's going to be a version of Boot Camp at all on ARM-based Macs? How is Apple going to handle Thunderbolt technology on ARM-based computers going forward, given that that's an Intel-based technology? At what point will Apple stop selling and stop supporting Intel-based CPUs? And what should pricing be like now that Apple's developing their CPUs in-house? Should we expect significantly more expensive or significantly cheaper Macs? Or maybe nothing's going to change at all? These are all the kinds of questions I have. But as soon as we get those answers, we're definitely going to bring them to you guys. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, because as soon as some new hardware is released, as soon as new software is released, anything Apple related, we're gonna have coverage for it. But that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Once again, thanks to Zero SSL for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. If you're looking to secure and protect the users on your domain, then you might want to check out Zero SSL. As the first real alternative to Let's Encrypt, Zero SSL offers completely free SSL certificates through a super simple and intuitive interface. In addition to both offering API and ACME, Zero SSL has a really user-friendly API that allows the user to create 90-day and 1-year validity certificates through an extremely seamless process. They're also beta testing their own ACME server that'll be released in May and allow existing ACME and Let's Encrypt users to automate certificates through Zero SSL. Try Zero SSL today for free in the link in the description. Thanks to Zero SSL for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube.